Hey, Tuesday evening, so welcome along. Good to have you all here. If you're tuning in live, welcome. If you're watching later on, whatever day it is, welcome. Hope you're having a good week. So, as always, as we begin, we want to pay our acknowledgements and our respects to the traditional custodians of the land. For Southside Uniting, that's the Yagara and the Turrbal people. We recognise the way that they have cared for this land and looked after it. We want to pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging, praying that God will continue to bring reconciliation between all peoples and between all peoples and him. And as usual, I've got my mate here. Hello everybody. Hey Grover. Hey Richard. What Grover? Oh, there's a message already. There's a message. So Grover's here and he reads out the messages that you type. And what's the message? Oh, it says, hi Richard. And Grover, yay! Yay. Who's it from? Oh, Russell. Hey, Russell. Hope you're doing well, mate. So, yeah. Oh, it's good. We miss you, Russell. Yeah, we missed you at filming again today. So, we've been exploring... Oh, so yes, comment, and then Grover will read it out. If you comment later on in the week, that's fine. We'll look at those, and if there's any questions, we'll come back to them. Thank you for those that commented last week, and others. It's good to hear your feedback. Can I grab my other hand for a minute? Right other hand, the one that's up. Okay. So we've been looking through the book Rebooted, Reclaiming Youth Ministry for the Long Haul, a Biblical Framework by Tim Gough. So we've explored two different things already. We've looked at Teach Everything. So the idea from the Pentateuch that we are to be surrounding our young people with the message of the Bible and the gospel, surrounding them and allowing them to experience and take on worship coming out of the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books. We've looked last week at Disciple Everyone, so that sense of walking alongside, mentoring, coaching, discipling, whatever you want to call it, our young people that we see through the history books, whether it be Samuel, David, Elijah and Elisha, Ruth and Naomi, so many examples. And so today we get to the wisdom literature, that bit that we probably don't read very often for most people. Some of it's a bit complex, some of it's a bit strange. But Gough suggests that out of the wisdom literature we get this sense of connect authentically. So we need to connect authentically. We, of course, as we connect with young people, as we connect with anyone, in the church or connecting to share about faith, we want to be relevant. And so it's how do we connect in a way that is relevant? And the danger there is that trying to be relevant is really, really difficult and can come off really, really badly. Particularly when we're talking about connecting with young people. So connecting and being relevant suggests, well, I'm going to connect with the young generation. But as you might remember we've talked about before, there is no single youth culture anymore. So it's not like back in the 1960s where there was a youth culture and so you could connect with that. Our youth break up into a whole bunch of different groups. So if we try to connect with the youth, we'll connect with a section of it if we're trying to be really, really trendy and I'm going to do all the things that this group does. But that'll mean we'll alienate a whole heap of others. So we need to be careful about not going, I'm just going to learn what it means to be, listen to this set of music and do these sorts of things. Secondly, youth marketed products and entertainment can change so quickly. So we might go, oh, this is really cool. With young people, we'll start doing this. And by the time we start doing this, it's gone. So Tim Gough uses the example of the fidget spinner that went off and were really wonderful and really cool. And by the time the churches organised stuff like that, they'd gone. So we need to be careful, if we're just going, oh, what's the latest craze? We'll get in on that. We're likely to just look outdated because we'll get in and it'll already be gone. The other danger we can face is that if we're just trying to be like the kids and get into the cool things they do, we're just going to look really creepy. Hey, I'm the cool youth worker that watches all your teen shows and all this. And they're just going to go, you're a weirdo. So it's not about being relevant in I'm going to connect with everything you do. I'm going to listen to all your music, I'm going to watch all your shows, and I'm going to try and dress like you and I'll be like you. We do that and we'll rarely pull it off. And young people have a great ability to know when you're just trying to, fake it to make it, and they'll just ignore you. So it's not about I'm going to be relevant and I'm going to be exactly like you. Rather, he says, yes, it's more about authenticity. How are we just open and authentic about who we are and what it means to live our life and the Christian life? How are we, that authentic and real? Which, before reading this, it's one of the things I try to be. I remember saying to one of the parents at Belmont, don't know why you would hire me to work with young people, because, I tell it as it is sometimes. And he goes, no, that's what's really good. You actually do. You're real. So it's important that we're authentic. And he says, well, have you ever wondered why teenagers would suddenly listen to a 96-year-old man who talks to them at the bus stop? So I used an example of someone he knew who had started talking to this old man, started talking to the young people, and they connected. He says, there are other ways to be relevant and lasting. So it's not just trying to be like them. It is active listeners are relevant. So as we're actively listening to the young person, as we're hearing their story, as we're showing them that we're listening, we're catching on, we're absorbed by what they're saying, then we become relevant. We become someone that they want to listen to because, well, you're listening to me, so I'll listen to you. So active listeners are relevant. Secondly, honest and transparent storytellers are relevant. If we're telling our story, this is how God is active in our lives, then we become relevant. Lucy Moore, one of the people behind Messy Church, in one of her books, writes about that importance of story, that I can tell you a Bible verse and a Bible story, and that's lovely. Nice. But that's true for me, it might not be true for you. Whereas if I tell you my story, hopefully as a leader or someone that I'm connecting with you, you have some value of me. So when I start to tell my story, then it becomes real, and you can't just go, oh, I'm going to ignore that. Because hang on, I respect Richard. And so I'm going to listen to this story, and it's going to carry weight and importance. So honest and transparent storytelling are relevant. So we tell our story in real life to young people, we become relevant to them. Humble people are relevant. So it's not about how do I become the greatest youth worker that everyone looks at me. How am I just me and humble and just myself? Compassionate and interested adults are relevant. So again, that if you're interacting with them, if you're really wanting to know them, you become relevant to them. You become important to them. They're going to listen to you because you're taking them in. It's what I tell young people all the time. Mentioned in sermon on Sunday. The greatest gift that you can give to someone is to stop and listen to who they are and where they're at. Because very few people do that to us in life. And so if we're doing that, we're going to become relevant. Hey, this person actually cares about me. Those who generously give time are relevant. So how are we giving our time to support the young people? Hey, so one of the things we did during lockdown of COVID was, well, let's do Unite Youth Group twice a week. So let's give you this time, and that builds relevancy. It shows that we care. We want to invest our time into you, the young people. Those who cultivate thankful spirits are relevant. So as we're not going, what do we get? But how we're thankful for this. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for what we've got. Become relevant. We're not just another advertiser trying to get more. We're actually going, hey, we're really thankful for what we have. Really thankful that you've come along. Probably mentioned it before, but one of the great things that sticks in my mind always is something Kendra Kesey Dean said when she was out here a number of years ago for a National Youth Workers in service. And she said, too often in church and youth groups and other places, we stand up and go, well, where is everybody? Which says to those who are here, well, you don't count. We want everybody else. Rather, we're thankful, going, hey, there's 4 people here. Yay, isn't this great? As opposed to, well, where's the other 10? Let's be thankful for what we have. Content people who trust God for what they need. Content people. Don't you love the English language where you can have the same sort of word meaning 2 different things? Content people, people who are happy and contented and who trust God for what they need, are relevant. So if we're actually showing and going, hey, I trust God, then it becomes relevant. Hey, this faith stuff is real because you're living it out. You're trusting in God. People who create situations for multiple voices to be heard are relevant. So how are we hearing different voices? How are we doing the intergenerational stuff? So we hear the different voices and hear them. And it's interesting, as we've started to do some of that, we're hearing from different voices in the service, and we're hearing from different people in the service. Hey, it's great to hear these voices. It's great to hear the children talking in the service. What we might have gone, oh, they're interrupting. How do we shut them up? No, actually, other people are going, this is wonderful. Let's hear their questions. Let's hear their answers. So on Sunday, asking about letters, and when did you last get a letter? And, oh, the first letter is A. Yes, it is. That's wonderful. What's another answer? You don't just shut them down, but allowing those voices that might not quite get it, but they're part of us. What can they teach us? Those who ask good questions, yet don't have all the answers, are relevant. Probably said it before, but if you look through the Gospels, Jesus is asked, I think it's like 140 or something questions. Could even be in the 200s. Don't know. There's lots. And of those, he answers directly 2. All the rest he answers with a question. And so how are we asking good questions to get our young people to think and not just going, okay, I've got the answer? Because often young people's questions are not looking for just an answer, but they're looking to explore. So how do we ask good questions that help them to explore, that help them to go, okay, you're thinking about this. What does it mean? Let's dig deeper. Those who talk clearly from the Bible are relevant. So if we're using the Bible and talking about it clearly, not going, I'll pick a bit from Leviticus and I'll just read it to you. But if we're unpacking it, exploring it, then we become relevant because we're exploring this book that they're exploring. If we're talking clearly about it, we're helping them to understand. If we're talking clearly and saying, hey, this is really difficult, but this is what it means, it helps them to go, oh, phew, I'm not the only person that finds it difficult. Thankfully, because we have one of the books of Peter, we know that other people find Paul's letters really difficult to understand. Thank you, Peter. It is biblical not to understand everything that Paul says. I hope I won't get struck by lightning saying that. Those who constantly mention Jesus, his life, death, and resurrection are relevant. So we talk about Jesus. A number of years ago, might be down there somewhere, I don't know, it might be at church. Dan Kimball came out with a book, They Love Jesus But Not the Church. So people aren't terribly thrilled with institutional religion. That's why we're seeing churches and other things go down. But they're really happy to hear about Jesus. They're really interested. They see Jesus as important. So as we talk about Jesus, we become relevant. As we connect Jesus in. And so there's some things to help us think, how are we relevant? How are we authentic? When we're being authentic, when we're being honest, we're being happy with what we've got, when we're being humble, when we're just living our life and sharing about Jesus, then we become relevant. He goes on to talk about how we need knowledge. And we get knowledge, not just wisdom. And he picks out a couple of sections from the wisdom literature. He picks out Job. Job's a wonderful book. Boys Brigade at the moment in the senior group are doing great men of the Bible, or great men of God, great men of God. And so the young guys are picking one and doing a devotion and exploring some of them. And so I got asked to do the first one, so I picked Job, thinking they probably wouldn't have it on the list, and they did. Oops. Oh well. And so Job is this interesting story of this man who loses basically everything, but still when his wife goes, hey, curse God, this is ridiculous. He goes, no, I will not. I'm still going to trust God. And even when his friends are going, yeah, you've done something wrong, haven't you? He's like, I haven't. I'm following God. Of course, God turns up and smacks him down and goes, you just don't understand it. But that's what Tim Gough pulls out of this book, that in that sense, Job, when God turns up, God doesn't go, okay, let me explain why you're suffering. God turns up and goes, you're never going to understand. You just don't understand me. I'm far greater than you. I created this world. You were not here when I created this world. You are not going to understand. And Job goes, right, I don't. I'm just going to shut up. I should not have opened my mouth. I'm just going to trust in you. And we need to allow that questioning and that mystery for young people. Do we get it all about God? No. And that's all right. There is mystery, but there is knowledge in that. And there is wisdom in that of we're never going to fully understand God. We need the grey spaces. We need that. We need to say life is messy and complicated. Don't need to pretend it's all going to be happy. Showed a movie to our youth group back in Belmont. I'll have to get it out at some stage and show it to the guys here, called To Save a Life. To Save a Life. Which is a great Christian movie, because as you go along, the person who suddenly becomes a Christian, their life goes rubbish. Too many Christian movies is, they become a Christian and life goes wonderful and everything's perfect, and that's not true life. And so how do we get these stories where life is messy and the Christian life is messy and it's complicated, but God is there and we can trust in him? That's the beginning of wisdom. That's what Ecclesiastes is all about. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity, or meaningless, or smoke and smoke. Life just seems messy, but God's there. The beginning of wisdom is the knowledge of God. And then he turns to Proverbs 3 and talking about the young man, and the young man being called to pursue wisdom and to live holistically by developing a tangible and living relationship with God. So we need to be building that connection. So we need to be relevant. We need to be connecting young people in with We need to be connecting young people in with the Bible, connecting them in with faith. Southside Uniting Church. Wow, the whole church. It must be the whole church. It could be the building. Could be. Can buildings type? No, buildings can't type. Okay, Southside Uniting Church. It's David Fender. Oh, I thought it might be David Fender. Says, what's the role of giving children security in the mess? Which is an awesome question. And is that why? That's why we live out and acknowledge and do the true storytelling of, we are people of faith and we have this strong faith. So as they see this strong faith that we have, that allows us to accept the things that we have, and yet to be able to truth tell and say, life is messy, but I have this strong faith in God, and I know that God's going to be there even in the mess. Then that helps them to have that security. Well, if our leaders are going through the mess, but they still have faith in God, then maybe in the mess I can have faith in God. So I think that's why the truth telling, and that's part of the struggle of the church, is that we've got far too caught up in the let's all wear a mask. Let's walk into the church and wear a mask and pretend we have it all together and that life is wonderful. And we walk in, we all pretend, and we all think we are the most terrible sinner in the world and everyone else has it together. They're all doing really well in their faith. They're having a quiet time every day. They're praying for an hour a day. All these sorts of things. And instead, if we just took the mask off and said, hey, life's rubbish. Life's really tough at the moment, but God is there with me. Then we're going to help our young people to understand that. Oh, Richard. Yes, Grover, pop back on my hand. David Fender says resilience. Yeah, we're trying to, it's how do we help them to build resilience? You changed my colour when you're here. Oh, look at that. Oh, I'm gone yellow. Oh, not yellow. Yellow. No. I can do that all evening. So yeah, how do we help them to build resilience? And again, it's about that truth telling. It's about walking beside them and helping them through those difficult times that we want them. Yeah, we want our young people to build this ability to follow and to struggle and to question and to grow. So again, that sense of how do we have spaces where young people can question, and that's all right. And they know that that's a safe place, because as they can question, then they can explore. So again, how do we ask questions? You're questioning. I'm not just going to give you the pat, nice answer of, oh, God is there, just trust. But let's explore that question so that you start to learn, how do I question? How do I explore? How do I learn more about God? And how do we explore God, and how do we build that? Does walking alongside them build resilience? I'm just going to be entertained by that colour change all day. Yeah, so again, how that walking alongside them, helping them to understand your life, that mentoring type stuff will help to build that resilience, because you're helping them to think through, how do I live life? Again, it's not about we walk alongside them and give them the answers, but we're building them the way to work out how to ask the questions, how to explore God, how to build, to learn about what God wants us to do. This is a great conversation we're having, David. Thank you for your wonderful questions. So yeah, that's that knowledge thing, that honesty, that when we're honest about where we're at, we can allow the young people to be honest about where they're at. And they can start to question and to grow and to build that resilience and to build those skills. If we just pretend we have it all together, the young people go, I don't have it all together. I'm obviously not right. There's something wrong with me. And so yes, I think that's the challenge. Oh, look, he talked about Ecclesiastes. There you go. So each one he's been doing a bit of an acronym. So the first one was PASS, I think. Last week was walk. First week was PASS. See, I did remember. So this week, when we connect authentically, we stay relevant. So stay. S, seek specifically relevancy through young people's humanity, not just their culture. So we want to, how are we relevant through what they're living? Not just, hey, look, I'm relevant because I've got an iPad and I'm on TikTok and I'm doing all this TikTok stuff and I'm looking cool. Yeah, you can tell that I have no idea what TikTok is because I'm just using the word to sound cool. But how are we connecting with them through their humanity and through their life? So allowing them those spaces to say, this is where I'm at, to hear their stories. When we connect with them, and again, this gets back to, we are connecting with the young people, not just because we want to fill the church, but because they are beloved people of God. And each one is special, so we want to connect with them that represents the humanity, not just a bum on a seat. So we seek specific relevancies through young people's humanity, not just culture. T, teach relevantly through language and forms that are accessible to them. So we're not going to sit down with our young people and look at the gospel reading in the Greek and work through every word and what the verb is, that it's a present continuous in the third person. Not really going to connect with them, not going to be relevant. It's great knowledge, wonderful knowledge, not really relevant. So we're going to use language that is relevant to them. We're going to use forms and ways of connecting. So we'll use clips, we'll use songs, we'll use other things. So I've said before, we tried in Belmont to each year have a theme, and the theme would revolve around a song. So the song helps to send the message. The group this year really didn't like one by U2. Great song, great theme, but I've let it go. Maybe that's what we want to do need to do next year. Let it go from Frozen. We've got a frozen ball that we keep tossing around. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So use language and forms that are accessible to them. It's wonderful working with young people, wonderful doing things like RI, because it forces you to go, how do I tell this story from the Bible in a way that is relevant and young people can understand? Because it's easy to get into all the jargon and the Christianese. It's interesting, in some of the worship surveys that we've done this year, one of the comments that pops up a couple of times is, be careful of too much jargon. And we can get caught up in that. We get excited as ministers. We've done all this training and we wanted to share it all. And sometimes we need to remember, how do I share that but in words that everybody can understand? As opposed to the great theology that I learnt. Which doesn't mean we need to shy away from those big words, but how do I use that big word then explain it? We're going to talk about eschatology. Well, let me tell you what eschatology is, and then we can use it. Rather than just, I'll use it and I'll hope that you understand. So teach with relevant language and relevant forms. A, accept relevancy as being found in a relationship with God, more than a relationship with you. So we're wanting the young people to connect with God, not with me. I hope they don't. So I was saying in my sermons on Sunday, we were looking at 1 Thessalonians chapter 1 and thinking about that. Who do we follow? Whose example, are the imitators of God that we follow, and how are we imitators of God for others? And I was saying, I think back to and I've said it here before, I'm sure, I think back to my youth group leaders and how I looked up to them, and I think now and I go, I hope my young people don't look at me in the same way, because I know the flawed human being I am. So it's how do we focus them on a relationship with Jesus as opposed to a relationship with me or a relationship with the church. We want to be building their faith in Christ. We want to be building their faith in God, not just sticking them within the institution or sticking them in the great group with the wonderful leader. So we need to keep focusing back onto Christ. And why yield to parents and the wider church is also able to bring relevancy. So it's not just, hey, come along to youth group. We're the ones that are cool and hip. And so you can tell I'm just not with it because I use the word hip. That the whole church. And that's why one of the reasons, I'm behind. Let's push for intergenerational, because it's not about, hey, we need to get our young people out of there because the rest of the church just doesn't get it. We need the space where we can talk to young people. We need to go, hey, the whole church can be relevant. They can talk to you too. You need to hear from them. You need to hear them doing some of this authentic stuff of sharing their struggles. You need to hear some of them sharing their storytelling and relevant storytelling and stuff like that. So we need that. We need parents. So in no way do we say, hey, it's wonderful, come along to youth group. We're the cool youth leaders. Don't listen to your parents. They don't know anything. We support our parents. You having a struggle? Well, let's talk about what that means. Yeah, parents can be annoying, but they actually love you and they care about you. And what does it mean to listen to what they're saying to you, even if it's frustrating you? So we need to always, and this is the challenge that young youth workers have not done well in the past. We like to go, hey, come along to youth group. Ignore the rest of the church. Ignore your parents. We're the ones that have it all together. I know I don't have it all together. We know we don't have it all together. We need to be encouraging our young people to be connecting with the rest of the church, to be connecting with their parents, to be learning from them. Remembering parents are the ones that will most connect their faith. The older people in the church are probably above the youth leader. So, each chapter we've finished with some questions for reflection. So again, I'm not going to necessarily answer these, but I encourage you to think about them. So question number 1. Oh, there's only 3 today, so light one today. Get an easy one. Oh, hang on. Richard, before you ask, yes. David says, one of my memories of youth was Sunday night hanging out with youth and some hip older people. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just those times of hanging out are so important because that's when relationship happens. And yeah, we can get back into that. It's not just about programs, but it's about relationships. So it's how do we they're just hanging out. Those important times for me was when a youth group Bible study leader, took us to play golf. And we hung out and played golf, or took us to go and play laser tag in the next town, or 2 towns down the road sort of thing. And we had dinner out and stuff like that. Those are the meaningful times because they're the times when someone is investing their time, and there's where you get the real conversations. So absolutely. They're the things that stick in my head. They're the reasons why I thought, wow, well, these leaders, wonderful. They're investing their time in us. So the questions. 1, how will you make your teaching relevant to young people without neglecting the Bible? Do you zoom out from particular issues to give them a bigger perspective of God's order and character? So how are we being relevant and using the Bible? So it's not about, hey, the Bible written thousands of years ago, chuck it out. Can't remember what it was in this book. I think it was in one of these books, in one of these chapters, where he talked about a youth worker message that he'd heard, where the youth worker got the Bible out and said, right, hold it above your head. It's really old. Right, chuck it away. We're not going to use it. Let's talk really cool. It's like, no. We need to be getting them into the Bible. We need to help them explore the Bible. So how are we being relevant without neglecting the Bible and using the Bible so that it becomes important for them? How do we help them to see the bigger picture of the Bible? That's why I love things like the Bible Project and all the videos they're coming out with, because they're showing bigger picture stuff. I'm answering these questions too much and I'm not allowing you to think bad, Richard. See, I fall into that trap of not allowing questions and trying to give answers. Number 2, do you facilitate the wider church and organise their resources effectively to work with you in delivering relevant teaching? So how do we get the whole church to be working together to teach our young people? How do we do that around curriculum? How do we do that around mentoring? How do we facilitate the whole church to deliver relevant teaching? How are you preparing young people to make the transition wisely into adulthood? So how are we helping them move towards what they need to know as an adult? How are we developing lifelong faith that will see them through adulthood, where they don't just go out at the end of youth group and go, I've learnt all I need to know about God. Might come to church and just sit there and be part, because that's what I do, but I'm not going to grow. So we need to connect authentically. We need to stay relevant, seek specific, to be relevant through young people's humanity, teach with relevant language and forms, accept it's about the relationship with Jesus and God more than us, and yield to parents and the wider church to be part of that. Hopefully, most of that you're going, yeah, we've talked about that in the past. Which means we're hopefully going the right way. If not, we're in trouble. So thank you again for joining us. We'll continue to work through this book because I think it's really great stuff. Again, it's the blue that changes my light. Again, it's about how are we... So the stuff we're doing with the young people is not just, hey, this is the latest fad. Isn't this wonderful? But it's got to be about, and it's importantly about, how is this biblical stuff? How are we doing this? It's about not just, hey, we've got to fit through COVID so we don't do things. It's, hey, we're actually thinking through this. And we've taken time to work out what we're doing as a church. So thank you for listening again. Remember, pop comments in. Thank you, David, for all your comments. It's been great to have a bit of a think and a conversation through that. Anyone else who's listening, that's what you can do each week. Pop questions. You'll get me sidetracked, but that's all right. That's what life is about. And we get real conversations when we're exploring those questions together. So thanks for joining us. I've gone overtime. Too bad. You'll just have to miss some of the block or whatever you would normally be watching right now. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time, or on the weekend, or sometime else. Bye.